This video is honestly painful to make because for years I genuinely respected Bill Burr. When it comes to comedy, the guy built a reputation as a straight-up legend. His sharp jokes, fearless rants, and that "I'm not apologizing to anyone" attitude made him stand out in a world where a lot of comedians play it safe. Burr came off like the one guy who would say exactly what he thought, no matter who got mad.
Fucking Rocky is your hero. The whole pride of your city is built around a fucking guy who doesn't even exist. You got fucking Joe Frazier is from there, but he's black, so you can't fucking deal with him. So you make a fucking statue for some 3-foot fucking Italian, you stupid Philly cheese-eating fucking jackasses.
He built his whole image around being someone you didn't mess with. If a crowd tried to turn on him, he would flip the whole situation and go straight on the attack. The best example is that famous Philadelphia show where the crowd was booing him nonstop, and somehow he roasted them so brutally that they ended up cheering. That clip still gets talked about as one of the wildest stand-up moments ever, and Burr never held back. Women, rich people, average guys, powerful figures, nobody was off limits. Even people who didn't agree with his jokes still respected him for. One reason, he never looked scared to say what he believed. Recently though, Bill Burr started getting major attention again because of his comments about billionaires. While the podcast world keeps getting bigger, with hosts like Joe Rogan hanging around powerful elites and wealthy circles, Burr stepped in and openly criticized that whole scene. Many fans actually respected him more for it. After all, Burr himself is a multimillionaire, so it looked like he had nothing to gain by calling it out. But then something happened that shocked a lot of people. One decision, accepting a huge payday tied to a controversial regime, suddenly made many fans question everything he had been saying for years. To them, it felt like the fearless comic who spent decades building his reputation had just undercut his own message. Now, the reaction online is brutal. Fans are leaving, criticism is everywhere, and instead of calming things down, Burr has pushed back and even called some of his critics stupid. Watching someone go from widely respected to heavily criticized this quickly has been shocking for a lot of people. So what actually happened here, and what does it say about internet culture right now? The story gets interesting when you look back at how Bill Burr even became famous in the first place. Believe it or not, he wasn't always known as the loud, aggressive, in-your-face personality people picture today. He started the normal way, just another stand-up comic grinding it out. But the real boost to his career came when he stepped into acting. A lot of people remember him from Breaking Bad, but his earlier breakout moment came from Chappelle's show. That show was huge at the time, and Burr had some seriously funny appearances that helped get his name out there. Once that exposure hit, everything started moving fast. Between acting roles and stand-up tours, his audience kept growing. Fans loved the image he brought on stage, the classic Boston stereotype: loud, blunt, unapologetic, and always ready to say what everyone else was thinking but didn't want to say out loud. He felt like that one angry friend your dad has. Except this guy was actually hilarious, and Burr never backed down from a fight. If someone challenged him, he pushed harder. One of the most talked about moments was his appearance on Ethan Klein's podcast, where the conversation got so intense that Ethan later said it literally pushed him into therapy. Wild moment. Around the same time, Burr kept showing up on Joe Rogan's podcast, which only boosted his popularity even more. He started dropping special after special, and many of them were praised by fans and critics. Some people even say he was what a lot of those Rogan Circle comedians wish they could be. The guy was selling out massive venues, Fenway Park, Madison Square Garden, Gillette Stadium, just from stand-up comedy alone. That's not normal for most comics. On top of that, he was appearing in Netflix shows, hosting SNL, performing at Tom Brady's New England retirement event, and even showing up in GTA 4.
I'm back!
I'd love to, man, but I'm seeing this hot Russian broad over on Firefly Island. Gonna drink her daddy's expensive vodka and fuck her under the pier.
The career looked unstoppable, and compared to some other comedians in that scene, Burr still seemed pretty grounded. While others leaned into flashy lifestyles, he kept the image of a regular guy who wasn't afraid to call out nonsense. That honesty was a big reason fans stuck with him for so long. But there's also a harsh truth about stand-up comedy today. Staying successful isn't always about being the funniest person in the room anymore. These days, success in comedy isn't just about being funny. It's about staying relevant. A lot of comedians are basically celebrities first, and comic second, if you get what I mean. Look at Amy Schumer. She's stayed in the spotlight for years, and a lot of that attention lately comes from people constantly criticizing her. That's just how the internet works now. That's why Bill Burr was such a rare case. He wasn't just relevant because of drama or controversy, he was getting attention simply for being himself. Burr built a reputation for saying things most people were thinking but wouldn't say out loud. And in the last few years, that attitude started getting him even more attention online. Around this time, something strange was happening in the podcast world. Billionaires, powerful tech figures, and major political players were suddenly showing up on comedy podcasts everywhere. The idea seemed simple. Sit down with popular hosts like Joe Rogan, have a relaxed conversation, and suddenly these powerful figures look more relatable. It sounds ridiculous when you spell it out like that, but it worked way better than most people expected. A lot of podcast hosts went along with it without pushing too hard. But Bill Burr wasn't really playing that game. He didn't seem interested in cozy interviews with powerful tech billionaires just for attention. Instead, he kept criticizing the influence and wealth of people at the top, and fans noticed that. For many viewers, Burr started to feel like someone speaking up for regular people. Even though he was already rich and famous, his comedy still carried that everyday perspective. He wasn't clearly siding with one political team or the other either. His jokes usually aimed upward, toward powerful figures, which made a lot of fans respect him even more. And that approach only made him bigger. His popularity kept growing, and his voice carried more weight online than ever before. But to be fair, not everything Bill Burr did during this time landed perfectly. Now, to be fair, not everything Bill Burr touched turned into gold. There's even a members-only video about his newer movie Old Dads, which he made with his wife. And let's just say the reaction wasn't great. A lot of people thought the film completely missed the mark. The jokes didn't land, the story felt messy, and for many viewers, it was just painfully bad. But even when Burr had projects that didn't work, fans usually gave him a pass. Why? Because he always seemed consistent. You could disagree with his takes, sure, but he stuck to his beliefs and didn't suddenly change his stance just to make people happy. That stubborn attitude was a huge part of why people respected him in the first place. So when news dropped that Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was hosting a massive comedy event, people immediately started asking questions. And honestly, the reaction was confusion. A comedy festival in Saudi Arabia? That caught a lot of fans off guard. To understand the situation, you need a little background. Saudi Arabia has faced years of serious criticism from human rights groups over issues like limits on free speech and treatment of journalists. Because of that reputation, the government has been trying to reshape how the country looks to the rest of the world. That effort is tied to something called Project 2030. The goal is to move the country away from relying only on oil and turn it into a global entertainment hub. So suddenly you see huge events popping up. Massive boxing matches, UFC fights, giant influencer attractions, and now even comedy festivals. Billions of dollars are being poured into these events to make the country look more modern and welcoming on the global stage. But critics say the outside image is changing much faster than things inside the country. And that's where the Bill Burr situation starts to feel strange for a lot of fans. Because this is the same comedian who spent years blasting powerful billionaires and wealthy elites. So seeing him perform at an event funded by extremely wealthy international power players made some supporters stop and go. People like Shane Gillis, Stavros Halkias, Leslie Liao, and others reportedly turned down huge offers to perform at the festival, citing Saudi Arabia's strict limits on free speech and brutal human rights record. Some performers were even warned about what they could joke about. For comedians who built their careers on saying whatever they want, that was a huge red flag. Australian comic Jim Jeffries ran into trouble when he compared a journalist's execution there to U.S. human rights issues and was reportedly removed from the lineup. Tim Dillon had a similar experience after joking about labor abuses. He got kicked too, despite being offered $375,000. And no disrespect to Tim, he's hilarious. But Bill Burr operates on another level of fame. Burr's payday was rumored to be around $1.5 million, which seems believable. So he went and performed at the Riyadh Comedy Festival, and predictably, it was awkward.
I can't believe you went to that place I can't find on a map!
Dave Chappelle even said it was easier to speak freely in Saudi Arabia than America, which left a lot of fans scratching their heads. It's ironic. These comedians built their careers mocking censorship and joke police, yet a massive paycheck suddenly made some of those principles feel negotiable. Bill Burr's fans were more than just unhappy, they were furious, even more than Chappelle's fans, because Burr had spent years building a reputation for calling out elites and wealthy people. So when he performed at the Saudi festival, the backlash was intense, and you can see it clearly in the comments on his podcasts since the event. As a public figure, there are basically 3 ways to handle criticism. First, the most effective: ignore it completely. This might annoy some people, but for most controversies, if you just don't acknowledge it, the outrage often dies down in a week or two. People forget quickly online unless you keep feeding it. Pretend it doesn't exist, and boom, it blows over. Second, apologize. This works if you're genuinely sorry. Mistakes happen. What doesn't work is apologizing over and over for small stuff that just drags attention back to the problem and reminds people of it.
And I will tell you, the Cheesecake Factory in Riyadh, man, it's incredible. It's right next to the Pizza Hut and the KFC. And if you want a pair of Timberlands, it's across the street next to the Marriott, catty corner to the fucking Hilton.
Audience capture can make you look weak, even when you really did feel bad. Third, you can double down. This only works if you know you're right and people are overreacting. But here's the risk. If you're wrong or your audience doesn't back you up, doubling down can backfire hard. You end up alienating your own fans and they'll walk away. The problem is, Bill Burr built his entire brand on never apologizing. So when people called him out for performing for Saudi billionaires, his instinct was to go full offense, like he usually does in controversy. But this was different. It's one thing to roast someone for getting mad at a joke. It's another to be called out for inconsistencies in your own morals, especially when you've built a brand mocking others for not holding the same standards. That's a shaky position to be in.
Listen, what went going on over there was a super positive thing. If you actually give a fuck about those people and how they're living over there, there's gonna have to be these types of things to kind of pull them in.
Here's my spicy take. Bill Burr doesn't owe his fans ideological perfection. He's a comedian. Comics, YouTubers, influencers, they're not obligated to be moral guides. But when you moralize publicly and build a reputation saying things like billionaires should be put down like rabid dogs, a direct quote from Burr, and then take money from billionaires to do a show meant to whitewash human rights abuses, it looks ridiculous. It almost reads like a bad joke. I'd happily roast American billionaires, but Saudi ones? Nah, they might actually kill me or not pay me. Going to this festival after everything is already bad, hypocritical even. At worst, you could say Burr's morals now seem situational, right when it benefits him. But here's the kicker. If he had just taken the backlash and moved on, it probably wouldn't have been that bad. People might have grumbled online, but his fan base wouldn't have collapsed the way it did. People might have been upset for a couple weeks, but it probably would have blown over eventually. Bill didn't do that. He didn't just double down, he tripled and quadrupled down, calling his fans racists and idiots. Can you believe that from a professional comedian?
I think the general consensus is how dare you go to that place and make those oppressed people laugh, you fucking piece of shit. I can't believe you went to that place I can't find on a map. And this bot said I was upset about it, so now I am.
He probably assumed most people would side with him, but instead, the backlash exploded. Fans were furious because he never addressed the main criticism. Instead of talking about the hypocrisy of performing for Saudi billionaires, he attacked the people pointing it out. Classic Burr line. You probably couldn't even point these countries out on a map. Totally out of touch. Most fans weren't mad because they don't know geography. They were mad because he looked like a total hypocrite. His argument basically became, "You're wrong for even questioning me." The backlash only got worse when he tried to respond more. Online criticism usually doesn't have long-term effects, but in this case, Burr's podcast numbers dropped significantly. Fans left, and his usual replace the old audience with a new one strategy didn't really work. Then he went on Conan to defend himself, and it went even worse. People walked out of the live show. Burr, who used to win over hostile crowds, now seemed capable of turning a friendly crowd against him. He talked about how Riyadh has a cheesecake factory and claimed it was progress for Saudi Arabia. And technically, he isn't completely wrong. Saudi Arabia has made some changes recently, like letting women drive and allowing Jewish visitors. But the contrast between small progress and the country's serious human rights abuses made his comments feel tone-deaf, especially given the context of the festival. Being real for a second, performing a lavish comedy gig where you can't even criticize the dictator is not a social revolution. You have to say something like that and actually believe it. Imagine if Bill Burr tried the same thing in North Korea. It sounds absurd. He even jokes about exclusively making content with the Iranian government. And if you get mad, well, Nike products exist in Iran, so maybe it's actually you who's wrong. Sure, it might be hypocritical, but he's a comedian. You're not supposed to look to him for moral guidance. You're supposed to laugh. What rubbed a lot of people, including me, the wrong way was the arrogance and contempt he showed for his audience. Former fans probably feel the same. Burr kept responding to backlash nonstop, acting like he doesn't care, yet refusing to just let it go. Honestly, the responses offended me more than the festival itself. This is proof that the best way to handle online controversy? Ignore it. The hypocrisy of comedians railing against cancel culture while happily cashing huge checks from oil-rich regimes is hard to miss. At $25 million net worth, taking $1.5 million is smart. But don't act righteous. You're a sellout. Own it. If you like this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with friends who love comedy controversies.